Hello, everybody. This is an on location on ITSP Magazine with Sean and Marco, but there's no Sean. So, yay! I got rid of him. Uh, he was having some technical difficulties, but in the next day or so, we will be together in the car heading to Black Hat in the desert in Las Vegas for the USA Edition 2025. And we are doing one of our last chats on the road, which means any conversation that we record before getting on location and then recording sessions there. And as part of that, we like to talk to speakers and keynotes and people that are going to be also in Las Vegas at Black Hat. And today I have Jennifer Granick with me that joined me because she is actually speaking there. And I know she has other plans as well, which maybe we'll touch on it as we chat. So Jennifer,
Yeah,
welcome to the show.
thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. We've already been chatting a little bit before starting recording, so we know what's going on there. And what we're focusing here is actually your session and yourself. Like, give me a little background about who you are, what you do, and how do you going to end up having a keynote on threat modeling and constitutional law, which
Yeah,
seems pretty much of a mouthful to me, but
it's true. I'm trying, I have 40 minutes on Thursday, and I'm trying to, fit it into that period of time. But, it's life's work being a privacy lawyer. So, but if I can't make it interesting in 40 minutes, then I don't deserve the stage. So
it's like one of those things where you cannot explain it to your grandma. You're not very knowledgeable about the topic.
exactly like that. And it's actually my second time I've given a keynote at Black Hat. I gave the keynote in 2015, which was a huge honor. I mean, it's an honor to be invited back too. But I did give the keynote back in 2015, which was some time ago. My hair was purple then. And it's gray now. But other than that, not too much has changed. And I am basically a privacy surveillance lawyer. I work at the American Civil Liberties Union, and my title there is Surveillance and Cybersecurity Counsel. But I also work on free speech issues, First Amendment issues as well. I'll be doing the speech in my private capacity, not as a representative of the ACLU, but, I have a long history of, both working in this field, but also of connecting with the cybersecurity hacker community. I think my first DEFCON was DEFCON 3.
Wow.
And COVID was kind of like a break, but I have been to most of the DEFCON since then. And I just have learned so much from that community. I have a lot of good friends there. So I always look forward to getting back to Las Vegas whenever I can.
Yeah, that's why we call it. I don't know if the younger generation call it that, but I know that we call it Hacker Summerfest.
Hacker Summer Camp. Yeah,
Camp, yeah, not
exactly.
fest, camp.
Exactly.
And there is a reason for it, because if you want to stay there for much longer than just Black Hat or DEF CON, there is a lot going on. There's B-sides, there is other events.
Yeah, there's the villages, like you
yeah.
were saying earlier. There's the talks, just like hanging out with people in the halls. And then, of course, Vegas, baby.
Yep. There is that too. There is that too.
Yeah.
Listen, let before we get into the threat modeling and constitutional law and privacy and all you do, let's talk about a little bit about how things have changed beside the purple hair. And I remember I was at DEF CON, I believe it was 2018, was the first time that actually people from the government were coming in and be visiting the villages. I still have this vision. Remember, I think I was at the car hacking village when they arrived, and it was kind of like the moment that instead of spot the Fed was like, let's welcome government in. And I know it's been a very important step, I believe, for the hacking community to connect so that actually we could change the law and we can change the way that hacking is perceived, which is not a bad thing by definition. Cybercrime is, hacking is not. So
Right.
how do you see the evolution of these, and maybe going together with the evolution of what you have been doing and the importance of what you do in this community?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a real ride because what I remember is that before the first time I spoke at DEFCON, I got a call from an FBI agent who wanted to advise me that I should be careful about what I say on stage to these miscreants that are like out there in the audience. And, that was definitely in the spot the Fed, era. But, as the conference got bigger and as Black Hat became associated with it, like a more professional, version of DEF CON, there were more government employees who were invited. And I remember one year, Keith Alexander, who was head of the National Security Agency, was invited and he gave a presentation or a talk. And it was very soon after that it was 2013 and the revelations of massive spying that we learned from Edward Snowden. And after that, there was this real feeling, I think, in the community that, these guys have been lying to us and, and spying on us, and we don't really want them around. And I think that there was, some evolution there where, there was, people from CISA, the Cybersecurity Information Security Agency, if I got that right, were invited to come and sort of, interact as a like law enforcement or national security entity, but as a cybersecurity civilian type of agency, interact. So there was kind of slow going where I think government officials were kind of invited back in. And I mean, just, sort of a corollary was the relationship with the, with businesses. And there was, especially in the early days, all that tension between companies and hackers because of vulnerability testing. And so companies, didn't want to, didn't want their systems tested by outsiders, didn't want anybody reporting the vulnerabilities, didn't want to pay any bounties, or anything like that. And that's actually how I got my start in this business. Was I was a criminal defense lawyer, and it just was like suddenly various people who were hackers were getting sued or investigated for their, for their hacking, for their exploration of systems, for their vulnerability testing and that sort of thing. And so I became a lawyer for people who were, retaliated against for this kind of work by, whether it was corporate America or, investigated by the FBI or whatever. And that's how I learned about, this information security world. And I learned about computer hackers. And I eventually kind of segued into just being not a criminal defense lawyer, but into being the kind of lawyer that I am today.
Yep, and I mean, many things come to my head. I mean, safe harbor and all those things that we've been trying to do, and how important it has become, right? Team
Yeah.
and pen testing versus what I was perceived before. On top of, say, well, you better get hacked by somebody that does it ethically than find out when the bad guys are
find out
actually
much later.
doing that. So.
I mean, people have finally realized, like, you got to make friends with the people who have information that can help you.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of what you talk about during your keynotes, I feel like two words that are there, actually four, but two are together: threat modeling and constitutional law. So I'm kind of like, can you put them together? Why they end up in the same sentence?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of our privacy protections in the Constitution, which basically boils down to the Fourth Amendment, is to try to, kind of strike a balance between the government being able to get the information that it needs in order to prosecute crime, and understanding that the government investigations themselves can be dangerous. And so there should be limitations on those investigations, which are the provisions of the Fourth Amendment requiring a warrant and that sort of thing. And, I think what's happened is that we have not really revised our understanding of the threats that government surveillance poses in light of changes in technology. So we have so much more information about us that's available than ever before. The government's powers in terms of keeping track of us, spying on us, are exponentially and sort of magically more than what the founders could have, even possibly imagined at the time that the Fourth Amendment was written. And we are still operating on a threat model that's like, we're just trying to get a warrant and catch the bad guys. But if you look around, and see how our information is being accessed and how it's being used, we need to understand that the government is more of a threat and people are more vulnerable, and then expand our protections of this information accordingly now that we're living in this new world.
Yeah, so certainly you can't unplug the computer anymore and be safe, or unplug it from the internet like back in the days.
It's not possible,
Right.
It's like that's just blaming the victim, right? I mean, it's our responsibility, I think, as lawyers and security professionals to protect the public.
Yeah. So my podcast, it's called Redefining Society and Technology, because I like your opinion, it's not just about looking at privacy and identity and the way that we've always considered that, and how we can still preserve our privacy, let's say. But my point on many conversations that we need to redefine the concept of privacy in this modern day and identity. Yeah. So it's a moment of change for society. And what I normally hear is that legislation, and in the United States, in this case, Congress, but even in other countries, the reaction time, it's always much slower than the way the technology evolved. And of course,
absolutely.
That's a big issue. So does this require some kind of systemic changes also in the way that the government works? I mean, I know it's a big question, but I'm sure you have an opinion on that.
I mean, the Supreme Court has never held that we have an expectation of privacy in our email such that it's protected by the Fourth Amendment. There's like one case from 2006. And, in terms, we just had a couple of years ago a case that was about tracking people with their cell phone data over a long period of time, but we don't have cases about tracking with, like our social media data or short-term tracking, or, there's just a whole bunch of unanswered questions still that, like, the Supreme Court only takes a few cases every year. So you have all these differences in, federal districts and different states and that sort of thing. And, a lot of times these judges are making terrible decisions that very important, sensitive information about us isn't protected by the Constitution at all, and is sort of just free game for law enforcement to access. So normally what you would do is you would go to Congress or to state legislatures, and you would get statutes passed that would fill in these privacy gaps that either, time lag or just, absence of law would have, so you could have this protection. But to be perfectly honest, we're all afraid to go to Congress or to go to state legislatures because the law enforcement lobby is so powerful that nobody really believes that the statutory law is going to actually be able to get better, because kind of what you said, people don't really understand why privacy is important. They don't really value it the way that they should. And so, we're not seeing a real, the same kind of like push you might see for that. There are bills certainly in Congress that are meant to try to patch these holes. And I can talk about, one or two of them if you're interested. But it's hard to get Congress to do anything these days, whatever it is, they're, not very productive in terms of actually passing laws. Right. So here we are, kind of swimming around in a world that has a lot of uncertainty about how our most sensitive data is protected, if at all.
So the threat modeling is not working. What will be, and I'm sure that's what you're going to talk about in the presentation. So without telling me the end of it, don't spoil it.
Because I want people to still come. So
exactly, that's the
yeah.
goal. We want people to be like, "Hey, that's going to be an interesting presentation for sure." But so, what are the points that you're going to touch on? Let's say this during your conversation, and who do you think or wish would take part in the audience to what you have to say?
I mean, my view is that to a large extent, technology has taken our privacy away by creating all these services that we know and love and that we can't stop using, but which are just basically feeding off of our information in a variety of different ways, legitimate and illegitimate. And the law hasn't stepped up in the way that we just discussed. But I believe and am optimistic that technology can give us back some of the privacy that it's taken away, just like we've seen more and more chat services go end-to-end encrypted. I think we can, as designers and engineers and security professionals, look at the information and figure out, data minimization, data retention. Is there a way that I can engineer that my company can use the data that it needs in a way that is anonymized, in a safe way? There are various, sort of options that technical experts, if you really took it seriously, could do to take this information and, not basically just have it out there for, not just governments, and certainly not just our government, but for hackers and identity thieves and all those other, threats as well.
Yeah. So sometimes we say tech's going to fix tech and people will roll their eye. Like when I heard that AI should fix AI, I think Schmidt said that, but and I'm like, okay, maybe to a certain extent. And I think that's the key, to a certain extent, meaning not going to fix it itself, but we definitely have the technology to fix that technology that is not working. And I always bring that example. It's been coming with us, me and Sean, for the longest time, where if you walk into a bar and you have to prove that you're over 21 to drink, they don't need to see where you live. They don't need to see a lot of other things about you. They just need to see that you're 21. And when you get your thing back, there's not going to be a record of that driver license that is being scanned. So it's kind of like right now, the way it works from my perspective is that you're just accessing so much information that you don't actually need. Well, you may need it later. It's almost like, let's get the data. We may need it later on. Yeah. And that's just, I think that's
the dangerous attitude. Right? I think that's the dangerous attitude. Like, let's just take it and have it sitting around in case we need it for some other purpose later on. Yeah. But I think your point, about the driver's licenses, this is something my colleague does a lot of work on. Sometimes all you need to know is the person is over 21. That's all you need to know. And with technology, we have the capability of doing that. And engineering systems that give you just the right amount of information and no more. And so, I'm a lawyer, so I'm not an expert on how to do these things exactly, but here I'll be in a room full of people who are experts. And, maybe I'm giving away the end, but what I am hoping is that when people realize that the law is not here to save us, that they will put more time and energy into thinking through how the technology and the security structure is developed. And as you said, tech can't solve tech, and law can't solve tech, but defense in depth, right? We try to make every layer as strong as we can.
Yeah, it's that complexity that when you have the right time, I feel like you have a convergence of technology and maybe thinking, and maybe it's the right time to, you get the right tools to make things happen. And I honestly, I want to be optimistic. I mean, I can go utopian to dystopian in literally one fraction of a second, and it's kind of like, really weird.
We're living it. They're both
like, this is awesome, and they're like, oh my god, no, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So yeah, I think maybe we are there, and I think conversation and presentation like this. So if you could imagine few, like a question or two, just to end it, you would like people to ask you at the end of the presentation, what would that be?
That's a good question. What question would I like to be asked?
Yeah.
I think, if you have a speech where you're always like asking people to do something, you always want people to be like, where can I sign up? But I actually don't know the answer to that question. But being, sort of motivated to understand it, I think would be awesome. In a way, I hope that everybody understands me so much that they don't even have to ask a question.
But if somebody comes and say, you know what, I'm with you. I don't know yet what, but I know we need to do something, and we're going to look a little bit deeper into this. I think,
exactly.
That would be a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. You helped me with the answer.
There you go. Raising. Sometimes, we don't have the answers, but if we
work
people
together,
think a little bit more, then we're succeeding, I think, in doing podcasts and in writing articles and in doing presentation and keynotes, of course.
Yes.
So just to refresh it, I have it here. I say it's Thursday, August the 7th at 10:20 a.m. to 11 a.m. So 40 minutes. It's a lot of stuff to pack in there, but I'm sure you'll do just fine. Oceanside level 2, and of course it will be in the keynotes, as well as the way to connect with you on LinkedIn and maybe to bring this conversation even more to life, not just during the event, but after. And that event.
And that's what I hope to hear from people, to hear people have ideas about how this can be done. So I'm on the board of the ISRG, the Internet Security Research Group, which does Let's Encrypt. And so, I just see through being on the board there up close how creative and innovative this community of people can be when they identify a problem that needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. That was a great way to end this quick conversation. I'm actually looking forward to see you. I hope I have the time to come and see
I'll keep an eye out for you there.
Keep an eye. I will be waving at you and come and ask you some question after, maybe.
Thank you, Marco.
But really appreciate you being here. And for everybody else, stay tuned. There'll be the link to the on-location coverage of Black Hat, which, if I'm not wrong, it's itspmagazine.com/BH25. And if it's not, just check on the notes. I'll be there. Thank you again, Jennifer. See everybody in Las Vegas. And for those that are not there, just follow us and we'll try to bring Las Vegas and Black Hat to you.
Thanks to everybody for listening.
Thank you.